Good day, everyone. As I mentioned, we are going to touch upon produced water, but the paper that I'm going over is Managing Induced Seismicity. It's a system for mapping the geospatial intersection of saltwater disposal formations, active injection intervals, injection pressures and volumes, geologic fault lines, and seismic events in the Permian Basin. This is written by a few folks from Source Water. The objective of the study was to improve the data that the industry needs in order to manage the safety, reliability, and cost of saltwater disposal design, investment, and operations. The company built a data modeling system that identifies exactly which formations every SWD in the Permian Basin is injecting fluids into, further integrating current and historical injection volumes, pressures, geologic faults, hydraulic fracturing activities, and seismic events. Some of the methods for this work, they had local land and parcel ownership, wellbore architecture, permits, faults, and geologic formations compiled and interpreted for geographic and geologic targets. Geologic formation occurrence in each wellbore was interpreted by intersecting wellbore architecture with gridded stratigraphic horizons and ISOPAC maps. Over 800,000 well-based information records were used to create a 3D subsurface model from surface to basement, incorporating more than 1,800 faults in the Permian. Stratigraphy, structure, and geographic boundaries were analyzed, reinforced, and corrected by integrating regulatory databases and digitizing peer-reviewed maps. Faults from 13 public sources were compiled. Missing fault lines were added, and fault interpretations were enhanced by identifying the formations of occurrence, strike, dip, and age of the complete representation of structural deformation. Wellbores were interpreted by intersecting the proposed and completed perf intervals with gridded stratigraphic faulted horizons. The process was applied to every active underground injection control or UIC well in Texas and New Mexico. Monthly regulatory reports for every UIC well regarding volume and pressure of fluid injection were associated with each well, reaching back to the year 2000, further updating each month as the new records become available. All seismic events were reported by TexNet and USGS are further integrated into the model back into their inception of those databases, updating daily. Drilling and completion activities are also tracked for the entire region, as some induced seismic events have been traced to hydraulic fracturing rather than saltwater disposal. Here are some of the results from this integration of work. The figure on the left represents Permian Basin public and proprietary fault lines mapped by age as an analog of depth. The Permian Basin public and proprietary fault lines intersecting some popular geologic zones, and they're all color-coded at the very top left. Then the figure on the right shows the integrated overlay of faults in red lines, and they also categorize earthquake catalog events, which is the heat map, and SWD applications during seismic review, which are the blue dots. So that just shows if there's a potential correlation with where the blue dots are versus where the earthquake activity are, as well as the fault movements. This is another visual that the paper had. There are plenty of other visuals that the paper had in terms of the integration of data, but this is a risk assessment presented by placing an injection well at a single location in the Permian Basin near the boundary between Central Basin Platform and Delaware Basin. Each geologic formation and the location is assessed for operational geologic hazards. There are 3 formations as an example in this view. There are critical properties on the left, so they're high risk if they're red and green if they're low risk. The middle visual is a map that shows the formation extent in blue. Pink lines indicate faults intersecting the formation. The right shows structural contour maps that indicate the likely fluid flow pathway and local hazards. Pink lines indicate faults intersecting that formation, and then the white indicates the formation is not present at that location. So this shows you a few examples from the Captain Reef, San Andreas, and Devonian. Here are the applications that the paper talked about. Producers can assess their potential risk and liability for induced seismicity from third-party vendor SWDs, where the operator sends its produced water for disposal. For such third-party SWDs may be operated at a different standard than the operator's own wells or might be out of compliance with operator policies. If a disposal well is found to induce seismicity, the operator may jointly be held responsible. Therefore, it's important for a producer to assess the seismic risk of each SWD water is being sent to. Operators and other SWD owners can assess potential risk for induced seismicity from all disposal and injection assets as well as hydraulic fracturing operations in a region, and identify possible third-party sources of seismic events, thereby mitigating claims against their own assets and operations. The model can be run across any asset using the Railroad Commission date criteria or their own criteria. It's fully adaptable to any well type in any location. Finally, companies planning new disposal wells can account for potential performance, time, cost, and risk trade-offs for any set injection formations in any geography of interest, thereby making better well design and permitting decisions. For instance, an operator might decide that deep disposal well at a high cost and high performance is a better choice than a shallow disposal with lower cost and lower performance. Or an operator might avoid building a new SWD in a location where a seismic review is likely to trigger a multi-year approval process and high permitting costs. That's the end of this presentation. It's a short and sweet paper. I suggest you all to check it out and review the visuals. As usual, please be sure to like this video, subscribe so you can get more content in oil and gas and professional development topics, and please be sure to comment on the video on the YouTube platform so I can incorporate your feedback into future videos. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in the next one.